According to author Daniel Estulin, the Bilderberg Group, that nasty little gathering of the world's power brokers, first discussed plans for the dismantlement of Canada as an independent nation-state and proposed its merger with the United States and Mexico into a greater North America back in 1996. Daniel Estulin is the author of The True Story of the Bilderberg Group. He now joins us in the INN studio. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Daniel, was 1996 the beginning of this discussion with the Bilderberg Group, or does this go back before that?
Well, actually, 1996 was the first time the Bilderbergers openly discussed it, and we got our information from our sources within the group. But the North American Free Trade Agreement was initially put together in 1981 when Reagan and Bush first came into the Oval Office. They called in the presidents of biggest corporations and the leading banking houses, and they asked for the real picture, and the bankers told them that had the United States been a corporation, it would have been bankrupt. It had no money. So then the plan is put together by all these people, the Volckers, the Rockefellers, the Brzezinski, the Schultzes. The question is put out. What's the solution? What do? We merge Canada and the United States into one greater North America.
Well, Daniel, I have to interrupt you there. A lot of people don't have a problem with the idea of NAFTA. Some do, some don't. We've certainly seen a lot of countries in South America not wanting to be part of NAFTA. But how did NAFTA become the North American Union? Was there a time or a process where the three countries decided the treaty? We know that Bush signed a treaty with Vicente Fox.
Well, the initial plan was actually put together, merge Canada, the English-speaking Canada, the United States into one greater North America. Mexico wasn't on the agenda in the early 1980s. When the North American Free Trade Agreement was signed on the 3rd October 1987, Mexico still was not in the picture. Only on Clinton's watch at, I think it was beginning of 1993, that the idea of Mexico joining the Union was initially proposed. It was discussed in 1995, and then in 1996 it was fully blown into an issue at the Bilderberg conference. That's how we found out what they were up to regarding Mexico's participation. But the initial plan, again, going back to 1981, was a simple Canada, English-speaking Canada, and the United States being merged into one greater North America.
And how is this supposed to relate to NAFTA? I mean, NAFTA was just a trade agreement, but a trade agreement favoring the United States. How is this the evolution of NAFTA?
It wasn't so much it was favoring the United States. It was always favoring the man behind the curtain. It's not favoring the United States would mean it would be favoring the people of the United States. Obviously, it's not the case. People don't play any role in this whatsoever. Again, if you look at the idea of North American Union or European community, it all goes back to the creation, in this case, destruction of nation states, something which has been perpetrated and orchestrated going all the way back to the Middle Ages, to the 1400s. The single greatest creation of modern history is the creation of nation state, number one. And number two, the mandate given to the Republic by the people for scientific and economic progress, which of course that gives people wealth, something that the men behind the curtain, the Bilderbergers and their cohorts, obviously want to eliminate from the equation, which is why for the past 600 years, and especially over the past 30, 40 years or so, we've had this impetus to the destruction of nation states and the creation of economic blocs. We have Europe as one economic bloc. Africa pretty much is an economic bloc. North America is quickly being folded into a union. Asia also is being folded into another union. Again, this is a penultimate step before all of these economic regions are merged into one greater region. I wouldn't call it a one world government, new world order. I would just simply call it companies who rule the world at the expense of companies and corporations rule the world at the expense of nation states and the people they're supposed to represent.
No, we know of the Trans-Texas Corridor and the giant NAFTA superhighway that's proposed to go across America. Who will this benefit as far as trading partners go? I mean, a lot of people said that cheaper goods from China will come in without the use of longshoremen or any United States unions, and they will come into Mexican ports, and they will be transported by Mexican truckers. It will completely bypass any protection for U.S. workers. Do you also see it that way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've seen this in Europe. Again, the precedents in the European community, you had nations, you had constitutions, you had flags, you had borders, you have currencies. Now we have one currency called the euro, one constitution, which incidentally supersedes national constitutions in times of crisis. You and I both know how easily crisis could be orchestrated by the men from behind the curtain. And a particular case involving China and the textile industry in Italy, it was absolutely destroyed. One of the oldest, if not the oldest industry in all of Europe, the Italian textile industry, was destroyed by the inflow of cheap goods, or cheaper, much cheaper goods from China. That was a test case. The same thing is being done with the North American Free Trade Agreement, the superhighway. And curiously enough, the only man in the mainstream press who's actually talking about this is a guy on CNN by the name of Lou Dobbs. We might ask ourselves why that is.
We might ask ourselves. Let me ask you this. We know who the winners are going to be in this. What will happen to the American people? They've already been stripped of a manufacturing-based economy. What will the basis of our economy be in this country or in that country, which is now comprised of the United States, Canada, and Mexico?
You know, I think it's very important that people realize that you don't have a country anymore. You don't have a government anymore that represents your interests. The judiciary is not there either. The Congress has been rendered useless. Basically, you're on your own. And if you want to do something about this, people better, empowerment, I think, is the key word. The man behind the curtain, the Bilderbergers, the CFR, the Trilateral Commission, they don't have your interests at heart. As in 1929, what we had wasn't the Great Depression, rather the transfer of wealth from us, the great unwashed, as Kissinger calls us, to them, the wealthy individuals. We're witnessing the whole thing, the same thing right now. I saw a document about 10 years ago. They were talking in the Bilderberg report about demand destruction. That was the actual phrase. And if you analyze it, how do you destroy the demand? By destroying the world economy. Again, the wealthy individuals, the Rockefellers of this world, the Kissingers, the Rothschilds, the Brzezinskis, etc. These people will not go hungry. They will not lose sleep over what is going on. We will lose whatever little we have left, and they will gain. And the North American Free Trade Agreement is just another step in that direction.
World economy right now is on the decline. There's been strong talk that the United States may already be in a recession. How much will this recession and perhaps a depression which may follow it affect these same power brokers that we speak of as they put together these plans?
We have to be very, very careful in understanding how this whole thing is put together. The power brokers are behind this. Again, as in 1929, it wasn't the Great Depression. It was just simply the wealthy individuals made money at our expense. They withheld funds when funds were needed, and this way the American people lost absolutely everything. You're witnessing it right now. Again, the phrase that I saw, not only in the Bilderberg report, but also in the Club of Rome report, then Trilateral papers, it was on the CFR website. They were talking about demand destruction. How do you destroy the world's demand? By destroying the world economy. When you destroy the world economy, people become poor. They don't travel, they don't spend, they don't use things which, according to the wealthy, should belong to them. Again, it's the wealthy gaining and we losing. That's what it's all about. Because you obviously have to understand the housing destruction and the credit crunch in the United States being orchestrated right now. The people who work for banks are some of the most brilliant investment bankers, brilliant technicians in the world of finance. It's unfathomable that these people who have studied at some of the world's best universities and business schools don't understand the fine points of finance. If they do, then we should be asking ourselves a question: do we know more about finance than David Rockefeller? If the answer is no, we should obviously understand that what is being done is an orchestrated process done by the people, the most powerful individuals in the world, again, at our expense.
Laws have been changed in recent years favoring corporations. We report stories almost every day where when there's a court battle between an individual and a corporation, we don't even bother to see the result. We know how it's going to come out. With the laws being stacked in favor of corporations at every turn, with the courts being bought and paid for by big business, how can we possibly get justice?
Well, again, the most important invention over the past 600 years, that's what separates the modern from the medieval, has been the creation of nation states, going back to the 1400s. The first nation state was in France in the beginning in the 1463. The necessities of nation states are different from the necessities of the corporations. Nation states have responsibility to its citizens. You're witnessing it right now in Russia, where the Russian President Putin talked about the need to protect the citizens, to make sure that the citizens and the countrymen are looked after. It used to be the same case in the United States. It's no longer the case, which is, again, going back to what I said before, you don't have a country anymore. You are on your own. The people out there, the men behind the curtain, are trying to do everything in their power to destroy the freedom of thought, your freedoms, basic freedoms. You no longer have a constitution. The Bill of Rights has been shredded. The judiciary is not there looking after you. The Congress has been rendered useless. Again, you're on your own. Empowerment is the only way we can actually get out of this. But to do that, more people have to wake up from their drunken stupor and